I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And this is More the Players, our PopCulturists PlayStation Podcast Extra. We deep dive into something a little bit extra. So for the next, X amount of weeks, Max,
9, I believe.
I think it's 9, you and I will be talking about HBO's The Last of Us. Straight off the gate, very massive thank you to the team over at Binge and HBO for very kindly providing you and I access to screeners of all 9 episodes. So we're recording this live on Twitch on the Monday the 16th, mostly because we've only had the screener a couple of days, so we've only been able to watch just the one episode. So this one's being recorded live, but moving forward, these will not be recorded live. They'll be going up on Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. on your podcast, 9 a.m. on your YouTubes, with the idea of this. This is our review breakdown of each episode of the adaptation of Naughty Dog's probably seminal release in The Last of Us. And we're going to break down our thoughts, what we think of it, where it lies within the game, where it lies, as an adaptation. And of course, if you are watching along, jump in the chat, jump in the comments below, and let us know what you think of the episode. Want to just get into it, Max?
Let's get into it.
All right, fantastic. So, yeah, for episode 1, it runs a good hour and 20 minutes. It's pretty beautiful, yep. And it does set up the beginnings of the show. Now we'll start the conversation around sort of generals and what we think, what we thought, and then we'll get into some spoiler chats, and go from there. So your initial thoughts on episode 1.
So I think for those who listened to the podcast last night, I think I said I was a little bit skeptical. I'd been burnt before, all that jazz. Generally speaking, video game adaptations just don't work. It's really hard to go from having an interactive media to essentially a non-interactive medium. It did it real well. Enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I think they captured a lot of that feeling that the game elicits very early on. Mm-hmm. It sets the tone very quickly. I also wasn't sure how I was going to feel about Bella Ramsey. Mm-hmm. I think she did a fantastic job. Mm. I'm digging it. I'm keen to jump in and watch some more.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Now, once again, if anyone wants to check out our episode of For the Players, our standard show that we recorded, that went up this morning, a day of recording, I talked about sort of me being positively optimistic about what HBO's The Last of Us would be, knowing the heavy involvement of Naughty Dog, head and writer of The Last of Us, Neil Druckmann. So it kept me happy. I watched it. It was awesome. I cried in the same way that every time I start The Last of Us on PlayStation and the game, I will always cry at the beginning of that game. And I'm glad, so glad, which is weird, that I was able to elicit the same response at the beginning of the show. Which tells me, A, I'm incredibly biased, which is fine, and 2, that it hit the same emotional beats in the performances by Pedro Pascal compared to Troy Baker as Joel. There were some creative liberties here that we'll break into that I think actually expand the story in a quite better way and in little nuances. However, there is such a respect and honesty in knowing of the source material, and that they're not afraid to either pull shots from the game, hit similar emotional beats, because what we're seeing here is the foundation of we're retelling the same story, which is fine, but they're adding flourishes, adding not even minor changes, but just expanding it, because the nature of the storytelling of TV compared to the storytelling of game, where the game is more show don't tell, where TV has to tell and show. You know what I mean? So there are things that you would pick up in gameplay that you have to visually see here or have it given to you as an exposition. And I think there were the scenarios which they've had to fill in those blanks verbally or within imagery. I think they've done an incredible job. I agree with you. One of the biggest concerns I had going in was Bella Ramsey. Not that I feel that she's a bad actress in any way. I think Ellie is the way that Ashley Johnson delivers Ellie is unique. Whether it be the inflection of her voice, whether it be how she carries herself, it's very important to the story. Now, like Pedro, he seems to encapsulate the disheveled, beaten man that is Joel Miller. He looks like a guy that's seen some shit, done some shit, and he's kind of broken internally. And whether that be in the stoic delivery, the pretty accurate costume mixed with, you know, just this whole energy, where Bella does bring a lot of the aggression and attitude that we see from Ellie. It's just a little different, and I kind of want to see where it goes. But of course, all the supporting characters delivered incredible work as well. So the actress that played Tess, brilliant. What we see,
I'm a huge fan of hers anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very good.
And then obviously Marlene was really good too. We see Tommy as well. We even see Robert, who's like a kind of a small character at the beginning of the game, and like he's kind of a small character here too. But like they made some adaptations to that story, because one of the first things you do in the game is go and seek him out. So they've kind of tightened that up a little bit, because that seems arbitrary in a TV show. But yeah, like there's enough here. There's no major changes. They expand on some things, but what about visually? How did it land for you?
Yeah, well, like I said, the whole thing has it does capture the tone of the game really well in its imagery. I think it played out really well. It starts off, you know, with Joel and his daughter in their house and whatnot, and you get to see all that. It looks exactly how I remember the game being.
It's a bit. It is a bit different stylistically, but like it's the energy is there. Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, that feeling, that sense of feeling is still there, which is awesome. That that small sequence where Tommy, Joel, and
Sarah,
thank you, are in the car racing through to escape the town. Played out exactly how I remembered it. It was so brilliantly shot. They do manage to capture it quite well, and they've done a fantastic job.
I agree. So
there were some issues with. I had some lighting issues in some of the darker spots.
So I was watching the screener. So I watched this yesterday, so the day before for worldwide release. You watched it through binge.
So I watched it through Foxtel this afternoon when it launched. Mm-hmm. So I as soon as it hit 1 o'clock, I jumped on. I had already watched the first half of the episode 2 nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little bit of a bump, because the streaming quality on Foxtel was a bit better than what the screeners we had access to, because we got 1080p screeners.
And then Foxtel's running at 4K, yeah.
And then obviously there wasn't it wasn't watermarked flashing through the screen.
Yeah, it's watermarked with my name, so knowing that if I was to pump these out into the wild, they know exactly who to sue endlessly.
So there. Yeah, I needed to fiddle a little bit, but it wasn't to the level of that random Game of Thrones episode where it was just fucking pitch black. and no one can
Yeah,
see it.
so that's the one challenge that I had, but that's the nature of streaming, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There was a lot of artifacting. The blacks weren't quite as good as I'd want them to be. But for me, I go, when this comes to 4K Blu-ray, and it will, it's going to look immaculate. So at the moment, we've not got, like, they've not really. We're going to start getting into some spoiler stuff now, just because it's context. Once again, understanding of the game. So this first episode focuses on the time of Sarah and Joel at September 26, 2003. So this is the time at which the outbreak happens, the day at which it happens. So they expand on here, and then like that is really quite nice. And as that transitions into the chaos night of the outbreak, or the events that we see at the beginning of the game, where a lot of dark but a lot of vibrant colors as well that really pop. And then as we head into the future, I think it's 20 or so years later, we see like a lot of muted colors, a lot of browns, grays, dark greens, sort of adding to that post-apocalyptic desolate world. In that, like, there's not a lot of, it's a lot of darker shades. And that really worked for me. Like, they have, like, because at the end of the episode, it's when they first step outside of the quarantine zone, and it's still night, it's still rainy, but like we've not seeing all the full blown color that comes in the outside world. But one of the things I really want to compliment the show on is its use of color, especially in that opening scenario, in terms of when all shit breaks down, right? And even its power of reflection. So one of the things that we noticed when we're watching it was that, as when they're doing that escape sequence, when they leave, and Joel and Sarah and Tommy leave the house, it is shot in a very similar way that you experience the game. In that third person, almost first person, you're in the back seat, you're seeing it through the eyes of Sarah. So you're seeing Tommy and Joel sort of have that shared level of panic. You're scoping around, and like you're seeing chaos around you. Like you're seeing those key shots of, that even that down to that T intersection, right, where they turn and head in towards Boston, where you see the house burning, you see the family on the side of the road that they choose to not pick up. Like, that's brilliant. But then as they get into the city, we're starting to see the dark, all the power sort of shut down, and we're relying solely on the glow of fire and some neon that we see in like the bar, etc. And they've even upped the ante in a different way, because when you're playing the game and they were traversing those streets, you're feeling in it. So having just the petrol station explode is great. Like, it's intense when you're playing it, but visually it wouldn't have felt as extreme. So they then upped that by having an airliner crash in the street, and that created that massive engulfing flame, which I think added the extra, and that also sort of is what led to the car crash that causes the break in Sarah's leg, etc., etc. The way they use that opening sequence, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I loved it. And then and we saw that a little bit later. We do see the beginnings of a clicker as they start to explore in this underground space as they're heading towards to find Robert. And we see a little bit of sort of like the spores and the mold and how it all sort of looks. And once again, like to reiterate my points from the beginning, like the level of respect at which this show shows the art design of the original, and once again Neil Druckmann's involvement and the creative assistance from the team at Naughty Dog, I wouldn't have expected any less, to be honest, in terms of it being legitimately a thing. So we look at previous adaptions. My brain goes to like Doom and Mortal Kombat and the original Mario, and like none of them really. In Resident Evil even, they did it in name only, but they didn't bring the energy, the care, or whichever. Because even for me, is just hearing the guitar of Gustavo, right? Like they have had him come in and be music composer on the series, so it has the same musical power that the game does. And hearing that guitar strum, and like it made my heart literally fucking jump and my chest tighten, because like to me that is that subconscious response to when I hear that guitar, like that is The Last of Us to me, and that alone went, oh fuck yeah, and my brain got all happy and excited.
Yeah, the opening sequence of HBO shows are generally quite good. Those opening credit scenes are fantastic, and they've done such a great job here as well. Like you said, bringing in Gustavo and doing that composition was really well done. You know, where Game of Thrones built the castle out of the gears, you've got here spores and mushrooms growing out into various things, and it's
It was absolutely lovely. But
Yeah.
so one of the things, let's touch upon a couple of sort of the creative flourishes that they've added. So even though there are moments where it is beat by beat the game, there are some extras here as well. So one of the big things that I noticed straight away, we can't help but notice because it's the beginning of the episode, is one of the first scenes of the game is it's Joel's birthday. Sarah gives him a watch. In the game, we're led to believe it's a new watch. In the show, it's an old broken watch that she goes and gets repaired for him and gifts it. So it means more because like early on, like we see him go to read the time on his watch, go, ah shit, my watch is still broken. Like little things like that sort of add to that emotional power of seeking that. And even in that exchange on the couch, almost beat for beat the game in terms of like drugs, hard drugs. You know what I mean? Like it's just it was great. We get to see some of the neighbors. So in the game, when the neighbor breaks through that window with the lounge room, and Joel has to take them out, we're now getting some more emotional context on who they are as neighbors, and so we're seeing how Sarah first witnesses the infected is handled differently here.
Yep.
How did you think of that? Let's this first sort of.
She's in the neighbor's house as opposed to the neighbor breaking into theirs.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. Because obviously in the game you know you wake up, you head downstairs, no one's home, and then it crashes through. Whereas here, she wakes up in the middle of the night. She goes to check on it. She can hear sounds from next door. She goes to check on her neighbor because they're obviously quite close, and it shows that through the start of the series, the show. Where it's essentially this old lady who she goes and visits because she's cared for by others. She goes and spends time there after school, and she's obviously quite close to this person, so she goes to check on it and make sure everything's okay, and then she bugs out real quick. So yeah, that was cool. It's nice getting those little extra touches that those contextual pieces.
Like additionally, like one of the things that they did in which for me was straight out of The Conjuring. It's the easiest example, right? Is while Sarah's in focus in the foreground, the older woman is out of focus in the background, and we see the moment that the fungal infection takes over her brain, and it's just out of focus, so you can't quite all you're seeing is the sort of facial movements and the distortion, and you're like, what the fuck is we know what it is, but watching that sort of have that moment was really, really sort of cool. It was kind of like that smoking gun to what we're going to see a little bit later. Thought that was sort of really, really well done. Outside of that, as I mentioned, they sort of shortened the sequence of chasing down Robert. It was also pretty quick. We sort of get a lot of hints around Joel in terms of what he does or what he has done. It's alluded to that he has done some shit in the time since the beginning of the outbreak and the loss of Sarah, which emotionally as intense here as it was in the game. I bawled my eyes out. But here, just through throwaway lines and reactions from people, we start to see the power of who Joel is. We're seeing, there's a throwaway line of look, we know who you are. We know what you've done. We know what you're capable of. And then everyone around them's like, oh shit, that was great. And we see sort of, Joel's day to day. It's like he's sort of involved in sort of odd jobs, helping burn the bodies of the infected, and the level of disregard he has for these individuals. we see another member of that team being like, I'm sorry, it's a kid, I can't do it. And he's like, fuck that kid, and just does what he needs to do. Like, he has that emotional destruction. He has that emotional disconnect from those around him. And and then we're seeing sort of him involved in minor drug trafficking, around like providing oxys, I believe, to sort of help Fedra soldiers who need to sleep because they have a fucked up scenario to be in. And we also sort of begin to witness the moments of that PTSD, the flashbacks of the trauma of Sarah sort of haunting him, and he takes it out on this soldier, which, that's kind of more implied in the gameplay experience, where here it's like, here's exactly the connection. We're already front loading the father-daughter connector between Sarah and Joel is mimicked, is an analogy here it's a simile with Joel and Ellie. They lay that out pretty clear straight away. So it's a bit more of that show don't tell, which is very early on. How did you feel that they've sort of handled the beginnings of Joel?
I think they did really well. It's cool to get, like you said, those throwaway lines. It's obviously alluded to in the game as well. You've got here, like you mentioned, he's dealing drugs to the soldiers so they can help sleep, and he's like, where's the rest of my stuff? Like, where's, I will give you this, but you've got to, you've got to deal with the other guards as well. We need that car type thing. We need, he's clearly a guy who has a task in mind, and he knows how to get shit done any way possible, essentially. Because when they had that interaction with him and Marlene early on, when they first meet Ellie, she's like, don't fuck this up.
Yeah. Implies that at some point he has made decisions.
Yeah, because they're like, we know who you are, don't fuck this one up. Like, so it's a really cool. They've done it very well. They've done it very, very well. Pedro Pascal has played his role very, very well. I very much look forward to seeing where they go with this, because obviously this episode covers the very front end of the game, and they've got so much more to tell, and I can't wait to see how they do it.
Yeah, no, to add to what you said, Pedro Pascal's delivery here is on it. The drawl is just right. I said the costume design's there. It's not identical, but it's accurate enough that you get that same energy, you get that same feel. Yeah. Whether it be the disheveledness of his hair, the unkept beard, the stoic delivery, like even how there's that scene where as they're killing time from the day to the night to take Ali out of quarantine, we see him the way he lays on the couch, the way he holds himself, when he sits with the watch, like, all these little minor sort of performance details that are really what seals it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that most creators don't understand when it comes to the adaptation of media like this, is it's not just the beats. It can't just be Joel. Like, it can't just be, like, it's important to pick up the nuances. Like, even when it comes to, say, Resident Evil, it's like, you can't just have Resident Evil and, Umbrella and zombies. Like, you need to get the nuances of what makes it such an important series and emotionally connecting for people. That's what's needed, and here they got it. Even with Ali and how they've put the costume with Bella Ramsey, is it identical? No, but the details are there. The backpack, the red sneakers, the attitude, the way she holds herself, her sort of bravado that she has as she tries to have that overconfidence of someone older than she is, with how she, is constantly on the defense and is aggressive and speaks very, sort of what a young person thinks is an adult, in that how she sort of swears and sort of has that constant standoffishness. And we get Riley name dropped, which is huge. That makes me so excited, which means we're getting Left Behind stuff in here as well. And for anyone that doesn't know, that's a throwaway shit. But like to me, my fucking heart, like my chest skipped a bit. You know, I skipped a bit. I was like, oh fuck, you know, like it's just all these things that are very happy. I feel I've done all the talking, mostly because I'm just a lot more verbose in my speaking.
You're also a lot more biased, I feel.
Oh, most definitely.
So, but no, like I said, you know, they've done a really fantastic job. It is early.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the very early beats. It'll be interesting to see how they adapt some of the more pivotal set pieces of the game, how that will translate across. I think for me, at this point, and obviously we have that luxury of being able to watch ahead. We don't have to do it week by week.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see the delivery of the end.
Yes.
Like, because that's, I think that's, you know, one of like if not the biggest part of the game that lost the set piece. So I hope that they obviously they've done the front end justice, and that gives me hope that the rest of it will be just as good, if not better, as they progress deeper into the story that they're telling. I do hope to see more of those little nuances of, we're going to give you a little bit more background context to what you've already experienced in a different way. So that's going to be awesome as well. But yeah, because we're so contained still within that early set piece, you know, we haven't, like you said, we haven't left the quarantine zone yet. I can't wait to see that big open.
Like you know, in the same way that the game, it takes place essentially over a year, in the way that we see this, you know, changing of the seasons. Like I look forward to seeing that here as well, as we see it transition from you know, fall to winter to spring, and we sort of see those colors come in, and in that same way that as they further progress their story, we get to see the visual representation of hope and excitement in a world that is lost of hope and you know, and happiness. So the irony of watching this and feeling that hope and that happiness, it's like it's brilliant, and that I'm really excited to see what the rest of this series delivers. And I think we probably should wrap it up here for at least episode 1, in that, because you know, we've got at least 8 more to go. It's very exciting times. But if you want to join us on the week by week, these episodes will be going live every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. on your podcast services, 9 a.m. on the YouTube channel. We'd love to hear what you are thinking of the show week by week. Please drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'll jump in there and have a chat. You can also hit us up on social medias. Our names, our tags are above our heads. I most certainly will be tweeting my thoughts after the show episodes, of course, go live, in that I don't want to, even though we have the luxury of seeing the show early, I do not want to spoil it for everyone. So you'll be getting these after.
Crimson with the hot takes.
Wow, hot take in the chat.
Subpar video game.
Yeah, my review, a pretty good adaptation of a subpar video game. Bold strategy, Crimson. Bold. But we'll leave it there. We'll be back with a regular episode. If you happen to stumble across this, we do record a PlayStation-centric podcast each and every week called For the Players. It is on Monday mornings, Australian Eastern Standard, Devon times, whichever. But this will be coming at you every Tuesday. So we will see you next week for episode 2 of HBO's The Last of Us. But until then, I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And some quippy line about The Last of Us. I haven't thought of a good closer yet, so it was, you know, it's The Last of Us is the best of us. Nah, I got nothing.
You just do the cheesy. When you're lost in the dark, come watch this episode, and we'll bring the light.
Oh, that's way better. I should have thought of that.